Anna Nicole Skaghead.
Well, if it isn't the wag that time forgot.
Keep your filthy claws off my dad, I am warning you.
He's more than capable of choosing the company he keeps.
I know what you want, and you are not gonna get it.
Not everyone's got a mind like yours, you know, Tracy.
Oh, sooner or later, he's gonna work you out. And if you think he's going anywhere near an ex-junkie like you, you're barking up the wrong pensioner.
Wow, it's a shame.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Welcome to episode 339 of The Talk of the Street, another official Coronation Street catch-up podcast that started a new year as we're meant to go on by completely forgetting to write an intro. I'm Gavin.
And I'm menstruating for the first time in 5 years.
Oh, you're making me wish that I'd put more effort into writing an intro.
I'm sorry, it's just overwhelmed me.
Now it's
this
overwhelmed
whole week.
A few hundred other people.
Right, yeah. Well, it happens to half the population of the planet, so I don't think anybody should necessarily be queasy talking about it. Do you?
I don't know that this is how I imagined us starting this podcast.
Oh, well. Yeah, my meds ran out, so I became a woman again. That sounds wrong, doesn't it?
So are you rollerblading again? Are you skydiving? Doing lots of activities in white pants that you haven't been doing?
Yeah. That's me all over. How are you this week?
I'm alright. Happy New Year to it. Well, that's how we should have started.
Well, it wasn't exactly a happy New Year for me, was it?
Nor me.
Although we did have a nice New Year's Day. We drove to Grand Rapids and watched Queer and ate some lovely Mediterranean food. That was fun.
Queer is the worst James Bond movie I have ever seen. Jimmy Bond, what are you doing? I mean, I've heard about going deep undercover, but this is taking it a little too far.
Possibly the best adaptation of a William S. Burroughs book, though.
Yes, it was good.
Yeah.
It was a bit saggy.
Yeah, so that was nice. And we stayed in for New Year's Eve. We were going to go out, and then we're like, nah.
And I was going to go to bed at 11 o'clock, and you bullied me into staying up until after 12.
Yes, I forced you to watch CNN.
Oh, just awful.
I forced you to watch.
Why can't you people do Hogmanay properly?
Because we like to see old gays get drunk on television.
They spent about 15 minutes talking to 50 Cent about God knows what. And then they spent another 15 minutes talking to people that I didn't know.
Apparently, we missed the great Ray Fiennes interview that night because we were still watching Crash. Oh.
Here's a movie.
Of course, you can learn more about that if you listen to our other podcast, The
Our
List
other
of
podcast,
Lists.
which has its very own Blue Sky account now, which you're more than welcome to follow.
Yes.
Dear listener.
As long as you're not an OnlyFans bot.
Of which there are millions, and they're all following us.
Yeah, well, not anymore because I blocked them all.
The same one following us over and over and over again.
Right, yes, like the same name, but with different like little memojis. Like one is a heart, and one's a clover, and one's a diamond. But they're all the same name, and they're all the same picture.
I don't know, Alexis. Why are your underwear wet? Have you been out in the rain?
And I also put us on. I also subscribe to a number of OnlyFans bot block lists. So
nice one.
That should help. That I never had this problem back in the early days of Blue Sky. Back in the early days of Blue Sky, it was just me, a couple of randos, and a lot of furries.
And on that bombshell,
Back in the golden age of Blue Sky.
we have another ton and a half to get through.
Yeah,
This
seriously.
week. So I think I'm going to move us along and suggest that we preamble, my dear.
Yes, please.
Okie dokie. Give us some of that furry Corrie news.
Harry has a new face, and so does the actor who plays him. In addition to the Corrie gig, Carter J. Murphy also plays a young Robbie Williams in the Better Man movie, which makes David a monkey's uncle.
Oh, it's a convoluted roundabout way to get to that punchline, but I appreciate it. Are you excited for the Robbie Williams movie?
I barely...
Now that you know who Robbie Williams is?
barely know who Robbie Williams is. I barely know who Robbie Williams is. We had this conversation about this movie where you're like,
I know, and now I'm reenacting it for the podcast.
Are there any American artists that you can think of who are really, really popular in America and never branched out anywhere else? And I said no.
I don't think most country performers...
I don't know. I mean, the really big ones are big everywhere. And right now, our biggest country performers are Beyonce and Post Malone. So, and Jelly Roll. In fairness, though, you didn't know who Liz Phair or Fiona Apple were when we were doing the Rolling Stone 500.
I didn't.
So
I still don't know who they are, and I wouldn't speak to them if I did.
But yeah, it kind of doesn't really happen the other way, where somebody's like really huge here and not anywhere else on the planet.
But if you, dear listener, know of any, please drop us a line.
Yeah.
thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com.
Well, Helen Worth has left the show for a well-deserved retirement.
Or has she? Is that what's coming next?
But
Oh.
that hasn't stopped executive producer Ian McLeod from hinting that he's already discussed a possible return in the future at some date. Let the poor fucking woman rest. Leave her the fuck alone.
This is good news, because this is going to be in a situation where, I don't know, let's say David
burns down the house,
needs a heart transplant, and you'd be like, Gail's not going to be there for that? Of course Gail should be there for that. Well, in this situation now, it sounds like Gail would be there for that. I kind of approve of them coming back just for one-offs like that.
Yeah, but it's barely been a week. Leave her alone. Let her enjoy some time off.
Nobody's forcing her back right now.
They're calling her, leaving text messages and voicemail. Come back.
She's never been so popular.
Come back. They're trying to drag her back. Meanwhile, they've got all these other people who are already there who they're hinting are on the chopping block and that we would like to stay a little bit longer.
Anyway, you've written Corrie News. You should definitely finish it.
And finally, Simon Gregson was on Loose Women this week to discuss his issues with anxiety, which is delightful, and more men should do so and be really frank about their issues with anxiety. Don't you think so, Gav?
Yes, I do. I'm all for that.
Yes. Apparently, in the early days, he would self-medicate with alcohol.
That doesn't sound familiar at all. Did his hair also fall out, and did he move 3,500 miles?
No. But he does have...
just be me then.
But he does have the exact same sweater you're wearing at the moment, so...
Which is the same fucking DKNY jeans sweater that I seem to always wear when we're doing this podcast.
Why is that?
It's my podcasting jumper.
I always remember when I said that the sweatshirt that I got that had the two lesbians who weren't on it anymore.
Carla.
Yeah. I was going to wear that every time we did the podcast.
You did it once.
I did it like 3 times. And then the t-shirt faded. Like the whole design is like barely noticeable anymore.
It was badly made.
Yeah, which is a shame. And that's Corrie News.
It's just like the real news.
It is.
And on that bombshell of substandard garments.
Oi. Oh, garments. Yes, that's fine.
Let's move on. What did you think I said?
Substandard news.
Let's move on. What? Let's move on to... Let's turn to our feedback section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic. I have a ton of correspondence to get through, and I have a horrible feeling that I've forgotten some people. There are so many ways for people to get in contact. It's
true.
Almost impossible to keep on top of all of it.
It's true.
But let's start.
Maybe you should give me the password to a couple of them so I can keep an eye on them too.
Yeah.
Well, I do have Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know what you would do with that power, but anyway. I'm sure it would be just for good, not evil. Neve on Twitter writes, just so we're clear, a girl like Daisy would have her birth control under, well, control.
Yeah, no shit.
The real story that they are too scared to go with is why family planning is failing these girls. Perhaps Gadas has a sideline in abortions. Well, there's a storyline just waiting to happen. Thank you, Neve. Lisa Thomas on YouTube says, I miss having BritBox and watching Coronation Street here in the US. Did Shona get her memory back this Christmas?
No.
No, she did not.
No. She got...
We've kind of learned to accept new Shona.
Right. Who's not as much of new Shona. She's veered closer and closer to old Shona. She's not quite so on all the time.
The occasional on moments when they remember to write it.
Right, yes.
Stephen writes, am I an asshole for thinking that if I lived on Coronation Street, I would anonymously gift a fire extinguisher to Tyrone and Fizzy's family for Christmas every year? There are some very lovely anecdotes about Andre the Giant in Carrie Elves' book, As You Wish. That's one for you, I think, Helen.
Yes, I think so.
I dislike racist Kelly, want her gone, never to be mentioned again, but wouldn't it be too mean-spirited for the new producer to have her sent down and Joel's parents to take Frankie after all the time the show has invested in her in 2024? Plus, as a younger, newer actor, she has to be cheaper than the others, which I think is a salient point, given some of the news items that were coming out from the cobbles over the week.
Yes.
That we didn't really talk about in the news.
No, because I feel like some of them are kind of spoilery, and also we kind of talked about one of them last week, didn't we?
Did we?
I can't remember. It was Christmas.
Who knows? Fiona on Facebook writes, I'm a couple of weeks behind, but hoping I'm the first to tell you that currently in the UK, all the bad lads have e-bikes.
All the bad lads have e-bikes.
All the bad lads have e-bikes.
So they're good bad lads. They're environmentally friendly bad lads.
This is, in fact, how you know a bad lad. Do they have an e-bike? Yes. Are they a bad lad? Yes.
Aw.
Also, Cassie is drugging Ken with the tablets my bulldog takes for his yeasty skin. I hate to think how much it would take to make Ken drowsy, but how does his skin look? Super smooth, Fiona.
He is
super
glowing.
Smooth.
He is glowing.
He's never looked so smooth. If we could only get some medication to stop him sniffing his bottom, that would be perfect.
Or sniffing everybody else's bottom.
Just enough for the bottom sniffing. Tara J writes, I must have missed the comment box on Ko-Fi when I signed up last week. I'm happy to support the podcast. You two always keep me laughing. Thanks for keeping the podcast going, even though the show is a bit of a dumpster fire right now. You are very welcome, Tara.
Yes.
And thank you for confirming that, because I do worry that I miss people's comments, as I think I just proved at the start of this. Now Sharon writes, hi David and Kylie, hope you're both keeping well and looking forward to Christmas. Well, we were. I thoroughly enjoyed the podcast this year. It's still my favourite, but can you explain what in the flipperty flap is going on with these shite storylines? Nothing is believable anymore. You've got Tweedledum and Tweedledummer Mason's brothers, who both look like they couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag, going around intimidating people. I'm sure David would have just laughed at them normally. Why would Sally welcome Mason into her home? I think that's one of the better things that's going on at the moment.
Yes, that's like the only good thing.
Surely racist Kelly would not have put Joel on the birth certificate. Yeah, that's a good point. Anyway, I think it might be Bobby's baby. That's very difficult to say, by the way. Why don't they bring Aggie back as a new actor? She could sort everyone out. Love your work. Merry Christmas from Sharon British, not racist. Well, thank you very much, Sharon.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Then Denise on Facebook writes, I'm watching the episodes currently available in Canada, wondering how effective the show depicts the machinery of bureaucracy grinding Lauren down. She has to keep fighting and fighting with very little official support. It feels a bit more substantial than the usual Corrie pattern of just throwing crap at certain characters for a while. I hope the new showrunner for Corrie takes on board the comments from long-time fans about the need to start emphasising character over plot. I absolutely agree. I do though think that racist Kelly has a habit of responding in a very waspish fashion when people are trying to help her, or remember that was that time that she was talking to one of the nurses and she called them you people and it was all a bit nah. I think she would be easier to feel sympathetic towards if she was a more accommodating character, maybe.
Yeah, not quite so snippy.
Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily call her waspish. Of course, I don't really know her politics or her religion.
Oh, well, waspish being kind of stingy and irritant, like a wasp.
Right, as opposed to
a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Correct.
Yes. Or we are sexual perverts, which I think is what the band Wasp were going for. Daisy writes, "Hi, Snoopy and Woodstock. My partner is a paramedic, and this is a direct quote. They spend so much time in the hospital, you'd think they would make some effort to get it right.
Which part?
When the doctor sat down next to Roy and said it was sepsis, we screamed. It's ridiculous. Tim and Sally taking care of Mason. Dream parents. I think they are.
I think it's absolutely lovely. They finally have a child that's both of theirs.
Right. Why is Sarah pretending to be Poirot in a leather skirt? Thank goodness for you two. Happy new bloody year, and a happy new bloody year to you too, Daisy. Thank you to Daisy, to Denise, to Sharon, to Tara J, to Fiona, to Stephen, to Lisa, and to Neve. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to write in. We very much appreciate it.
Yes.
Feedback is always welcome. Send us your thoughts, and I'll probably read them out. Get us at the talk of the street at gmail.com, or our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast, or we love it when people write actual letters to us. Send us your proper mail to the talk of the street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan 48827. Please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interest of brevity, and I now remember that I haven't checked that P.O. Box in a little while, so I should really do that tomorrow. And now, we'll podcast for coffee.
Friend of the podcast.
That's a good salute.
Thank you.
Welcome to our new friend of the podcast,
Huzzah!
Fiona B. You may remember Fiona B as being the person who has a bulldog with yeasty skin. That's how I remember Fiona B.
Yes.
Welcome aboard, Fiona. Fiona writes, "It's about time I became an official friend, since I've been thinking of you both as friends for years. Thanks for all the laughs across both podcasts." Both podcasts! Helen?
Yes, both.
2.5 years of not watching the show now, but never missing a pod. P.S. The Films of the Year episode of Lists of Lists was an absolute hoot.
Aw, very nice.
Thank you ever so much for signing up, Fiona. We very much appreciate it. And welcome aboard as our latest friend of the podcast. The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. But if you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. You can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link, where for as little as $2 a month, you can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. And we now have a Patreon site where you can also show us some love. Sign up as a friend of the podcast there at patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. But remember, you can always support the podcast for free and get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts. Another week of an extra half hour.
Yeah. And this one not quite so good as last week.
Well, let's dive in anyway, shall we? Because
Yes, please.
let's face it, we might as well.
We might as well.
And we will start this week's recap with every pentagram is a love pentagram when you love pentagrams. On Monday, remember when David was walking around the destitutes of the Salford and Greater Manchester area, where there was a car that looked like the one that Debbie had stolen?
The Skid Row of Manchester.
Indeed. Well, David didn't hang about there for too long, it seems, because
No.
he returns back to the street, and his first piece of business is to nearly knock down Kit as he crosses the street. "Where did you get your car from, David? Because you didn't have it the last time we saw you."
Right, yeah.
As they argue, Bernie comes along to break it up, and all this is seen by Lily. In Nina's roles, Bernie wants to know what all this was about, reminding Kit that David was Paul's friend, and then Daisy comes in and refuses to sit with him.
When did Bernie and Kit develop this sort of relationship?
I don't think
where-
they developed this relationship as far as this, but tensions cooled between the two of them
Right,
some
because,
time ago.
like, she's acting like a proper mum to him, and he's not making snarky comments back to her, and he's kind of listening to her now.
Yeah, I think we've kind of forgotten that all that was ever a thing.
It's Todd and Paul all over again, isn't it? It's Todd and Paul all over again, where Paul just automatically forgives Todd for the whole trying to steal Billy back thing, and they all become friends and super dads together.
Back at number 8, David dodges Lily's questions about what that was all about, but warns her that he and Shona might well split up. Max comes in after speaking with Bernie, and he wants some answers too, because Bernie's now talking to Max about this sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
So that's entirely believable.
Yeah.
When Shona comes in, he demands that he explain to the kids what happened, but he gets the shock of his life when she starts with David lying to her about Clayton.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. But it's absolutely important to have that context.
Yes, let's frame this correctly.
Let's start from the very beginning, shall we? Because it's a very good place to start.
Once Lily is sent to a room, Shona admits to having a one-night stand, which Max does not take well. It's Shona's lies that David really can't stomach, though, and at that moment, he's hit by a bolt of hypocrisy. Sarah comes in wanting to know why David tried to run down Kit, which is news to Shona. David explains why and tells Shona to move out. In the bistro...
Yeah, you can't do that, David.
Sarah...
She's married to you, and she's also a resident of that house. You can't just kick her out.
In the bistro, Sarah and Nick work on David to see that he's been in the wrong and encourage him to drop this vendetta. David thinks Kit is a bent cop, and Sarah agrees. And everyone's like, what the fuck do you know about Kit? So Sarah ends up spilling what she knows about that.
Or we assume that's what happened because we don't actually get to see it.
No, but it's obvious that it does because David takes this information and finds Kit in a quiet corner and hints that he knows about the whole Nathan business. Kit quickly susses that David is recording the conversation, grabs his phone, turns it off, and then smashes his own windscreen and then immediately arrests David for criminal damage. But he gets bored when Sarah shows up and lets David go. David says he knows all of Kit's secrets. Likewise, says Kit. And when they get home, Shona's making Lily's bed before she leaves for her cousins in Denton. Denton?
May as well be London.
You're going to travel back and forth between here and Denton by bus? That's going to take you forever. Cost you a fortune.
Just to work at Roy's?
It looks like it's about 50 minutes away by bus as far as I can work out.
Well, that still would be kind of ridiculous. A commute to work at Roy's Rolls. Or Nina's Rolls.
In a quieter moment, Shona explains that she was never lusting after Kit. She only did it because she was furious. And she says what he did was worse and asks him to imagine what he would have thought if the situation had been reversed and she stopped him from seeing Max. She hasn't forgiven him.
Max hasn't killed anyone, says David. That's such a poor excuse for... We're speaking in hypotheticals, David. Do you not understand what a hypothetical is?
She hasn't forgiven him and maybe she never will, but she's prepared to work on it. In the pub, Daisy is still unresponsive to Kit's charms and him reminding her of the secrets he's keeping for her cut no cheese. Daisy and Shona are talking about Kit in front of Kit when Shona comes in and loudly tells him to stay away from David. Daisy suggests maybe Kit tries to get his end away with Sarah because that'll complete the whole set. Or maybe Maria. Dream on, says Maria, who was clearly thinking quite deeply about it.
Right.
Oh,
and
yeah,
also, it's
Yeah,
funny.
you probably do.
And it's hilarious because let's all not forget, Sarah was the first one he kind of tried it on with.
Yeah, he didn't get very far.
It did not get very far.
Daisy takes Kit into the back room where he insists that David broke the windscreen, but she doesn't believe anything he says. He says he's keeping some plates spinning, and Daisy's is one of them, but he'll make sure everyone stays quiet. He said something along the lines of, I'm involved in everyone's storylines here.
Yes.
Which is quite
true.
amusing. Daisy isn't moved and suggests they quit while they're ahead. And Kit, oddly enough, feels quite used by this.
It's hilarious.
Shona and Sarah are on Maxine's bench chatting about David and how Shona still made Lily's bed, and she realises that David won't do half of what she does for the kids. So she goes back home and refuses to leave, insists that they're both as bad as each other, and despite everything, she reckons that they both still love each other. Meanwhile, Kit meets Ant and Dec in the precinct and tells them that if they want to go after David Platt, have at it.
Dum dum dum.
So, on New Year's Eve, or Hogmanay if you prefer, Kit bumps into David and Nina's Rolls and takes pleasure in insinuating to him that Mason's brothers are now off the leash. At the salon, Shona turns up to ask them all to a boards game night tonight. Max is a prick to her, and David is dismissive. Audrey thinks David must be pretty lonely up there on the moral high ground, and she tells him to think of his family for fuck's sake. So, they all decide to play Jenga, which isn't really a board game.
Right. And also, difficult to play with more than 4 people.
I don't think Audrey was taking part, do you? She was just kind of watching and slowly getting drunk.
She was there.
Yeah.
She should have a turn.
Shouldn't have tested water with David.
But not like that.
What exactly is that?
I don't know. I was just feeling the silence.
Okay. But he's still reluctant to forgive her. He loves her in his heart, but he can't get through the thought of Tall Kit with his massive bobby giving her a professional cocking. I can't believe I wrote that sentence.
I can't believe you spoke that sentence.
It's New Year's Eve. I was feeling fruity. Shona's not going to give up on them. And then later, when Shona's taking the bins out, there's a loud bang that David thinks is a gunshot. It's just a firework. And Shona says, getting shot once was unfortunate, twice would be careless. And this makes David realise how much she means to him. And they finally make up.
Yes.
A little too easily.
For now. Well, because he thought that, Ant and Dec had shot her in the backyard.
It did sound like a gunshot.
It did. It's sad that we know what gunshots sound like. And I can't say Ant and Dec anymore without thinking of Wallace and Gromit.
I know, what a good joke that was.
That was
You're
such a
about the
great
only
joke.
person in the US that got that joke. And it was one of the best jokes in the show.
It was.
On New Year's Day, Daniel and Bethany choose the Rovers to be the venue for their engagement party, just so they can rub Daisy's nose in it.
Well, and also because apparently there's another private party at the bistro. So maybe they should have called ahead.
There's a fun wee scene as Sarah and Bethany and Jenny chat about Bethany's wedding attire, and they go into super micro detail, and then it cuts to Daniel and David, who decide that Daniel doesn't need a new suit because he's already got one. Privately, Daniel apologises for the other day. All water under the bridge, says Daisy, but she would like a word with him if he has a moment. But he's called away to make a speech, and he talks about the road that brought him to Bethany, and then starts stealing lines from Edgar Allan Poe again. Oh God, Daniel's speech.
God, it was so bad.
Are we to believe that he could come up with something so pompous and pretentious off the cuff like that?
Yes.
Life is something that we experience forwards but look backwards upon, or sometimes sideways, and sometimes with one eye shut.
And sometimes life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans.
Once upon a lonesome morning, or whatever it is.
2 roads diverged in a narrow wood.
It was a dark and stormy night. And so they rode on, beats against the current, borne ceaselessly into the past. What book's that from, Helen?
Is it, making that face for? Is that stupid guy that you like and I don't?
F. Scott's Fitzgerald?
No.
Because it is F. Scott's Fitzgerald.
I do kind of hate him. He was mean to his wife. Was it,
Well, I've kind of told you.
you think he only wrote one book?
I think,
You only know of one book, The Great Gatsby.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Anyway, where do we get to? When he asks what Daisy wanted to speak to him about, obviously moved by his shit speech, she tells him that his flies were undone or something, I don't know. Daniel insists that he wants Daisy to remain in Bertie's life. She's the closest thing he's had to a mum. What about his mum? His
Well-
mum was pretty close to being a mum.
His mum was dead by the time he would have remembered her.
Yeah,
He
but that's
doesn't
not
remember
what
his
he
mum.
says. He says she's the closest thing that he's ever had to a mum.
Right, meaning that he would remember. 'Cause-
See, I think that's a vital part that he just skimmed over there, because it makes it sound like they found Bertie under a leaf somewhere. Which may well be true.
yeah, it was
Poor
under a Sinead.
Poor Sinead. Dead and forgotten.
Except for her cardigan.
Sarah sees this exchange but doesn't hear it. Later, she finds Daisy, who looks like she's been crying, and demands to know what they were all chatting about that made her
Fuck you,
cry.
Sarah. You do not have any right to ask this young woman why she's crying and what conversation she was having. What the hell is wrong with Sarah? Why does she keep doing this to people?
Sarah wears Daisy down and gets her on side a little bit by opening that conversation by saying, "I've never really liked you."
Yeah.
And Daisy says, "Oh, and you hide it so well." Daisy said that she's still upset from breaking up with Kit. Sarah's not buying it. Daisy doesn't give a shit and tells Sarah to suck her balls. Later, Sarah tells Daniel that she hopes he meant the words that he said and suspects that he's full of shit, but if he lets Bethany down, she'll force feed him his own genitals. Gulp, says Daniel. Meanwhile, Jenny has got her mitts on a DNA kit that's non-invasive and will let everyone know who the daddy is.
And also,
well done, Jenny.
That Daisy is 100% that bitch.
On Friday, Daisy pays Daniel a visit. She's black-bagged all of Bertie's stuff and reckons that they should knock that whole idea on the head. She's nothing to Bertie anymore and doesn't want to confuse him. Daniel still wants her to be part of his life, but she says that's Bethany's job now. His stuff's getting in the way in more ways than one and will be useful for when Daniel and Bethany have kids together. And Bethany's walked in and hears this, and from her expression, yeah, it's impossible to tell anything. But later in Nina's roles, Bethany speaks to Sarah, and it turns out that Bethany has no intention of having kids, so thinks that Daniel's baby fever might be a deal breaker to their engagement. So back home, Bethany brings up the subject of kids with Daniel. He says he's changed his mind on the matter, and he doesn't want any more. Bertie is more than enough. Bethany's expression
Until
suggests...
after we're married, and then I will slowly wear you down.
Bethany's expression suggests that she's relieved, and she says that she'll settle for a cockatoo. Oh, a cockatoo. Sorry.
I thought it was a cockapoo. Like the dog.
No, I thought she said cockatoo. And that's as far as we get with that this week. Well, so much going on.
Ugh. How are they going to do a DNA test without, like, surreptitiously getting DNA from Daniel and Kit? I suppose Daniel does drink there, as does Kit.
I think you've answered your own question.
Let's just wipe the...
She's going to harvest some DNA.
Yes.
It's always a good storyline, isn't it?
Yes. Secretly harvesting DNA.
Like Tyrone failed at.
Yes.
He tried to swab poor Dorian.
Yes. Well, that's not the only...
Bring that child back.
That's not the only story that gets a
Lilo.
retread this week.
Let's talk about David and Shona for a second. Do you think... Oh, I think you maybe hinted at your thoughts on this matter when seemed to get back together again. I do suspect that this is maybe a little bit too quick, but David does seem now that he's going to be at least trying to make this work.
Yeah, until the next time Shona wants to go see her son or something. It just feels like this is constantly going to be coming back up, and they only keep putting them back together because people like them.
It's never going to be satisfied to anyone's pleasure because it's never going to go away. And it's a relationship that should never really work. And it does kind of most of the time, I suppose.
Because they both have very similar personalities, I think.
Yeah, they kind of complement.
Yeah, they both have a similar sense of humor.
I think we are just extending the inevitable here.
Yeah. Waiting for Lily to get out of school, and then Shona's gone.
Yeah, once she doesn't have to make Lily's bed, that's it.
That's it.
Out of here.
She's done. How old is Shona supposed to be?
I have no idea. How old's Clayton? He's 20s, maybe?
Yeah, he's an adult. He's in an adult prison.
So I would say maybe 40-something.
And they're still talking about having babies?
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah. I suppose I am still fertile at 48, so...
You are fertile myrtle. Shona is... Oh, God. Shona's 38.
Yeah, because she had Clayton young, didn't she?
Clayton is 23, or will be 24 next week.
So she was like, what, 14?
That's what Corripedia's telling me. Clayton was born January 2001, so he will be 24. And Shona was born 6th of October 1987. So, yeah, so...
She was 14 when she had him.
Wait a minute. Was she 14 or was she 13?
Either way.
She was 13.
Yeah, that's...
Did we know this? Is everybody listening to this right now going, why don't you know this?
Or is everybody listening now going, oh my God, why do we not know this? Why isn't this a bigger deal on the show that she was a teenage mum?
She was 13 when she had him, and she was 12 when she got pregnant. Did we know this?
I feel like we should have known this if this is well known within the show. Do we know who Clayton's dad is?
Clayton's dad is Dane Hibbs.
How old was he?
And Dane Hibbs was born in 1984. So he was 16 when Clayton...
And she was 12.
He was 15 when he knocked her up. And she was 12. Well, this has suddenly turned a little bit sour, hasn't it?
Oh my God.
Is this common knowledge? Are we just...
I'm sure people will tell us. This is shocking.
I mean, I think I've seen all the episodes since Shona's been in it.
Yeah. And this has never been mentioned?
Oh, how jaded have I become if I've just forgotten it? That's a soap, I suppose. Oh, well. Daniel and Bethany then, are they going to get married?
There's a part of me that says, that feels, I hope so, because they deserve one another.
Hard no.
But then there's another part of me that's like, yeah, this is not good. Although I don't want him to get back together with Daisy either.
Well, I think the whole her being pregnant thing is definitely coming out, because already she's knocking back offers of booze and saying that she's on antibiotics, and already Bethany's looking kind of suspicious about all this, and even Daniel paid attention long enough to be a little bit quizzical about it. So it's all going to come out, and surely that would be the last red flag that Bethany needs before she just completely severs ties with this idiot. All right, let's move on. Mr. from Another Sister. On Monday, Leanne is grateful to Steve's generosity for offering her a place to stay, and they seem to have got through the night without anyone getting knocked up. Amy, though, is unimpressed to see Leanne, thinking that what she did to Toyah and Nick is about as bad as anything that the Institute did. She leaves and immediately runs into Toyah and Nick, but knocks back Toyah's concerns. Toyah speaks to Dee Dee, learns that Leanne is looking at a jail term here, so predictably puts some pressure on Nick to get the charges dropped. In other news, apparently Sam has given his blessing to Toyah moving back into the flat, so Nick goes to speak to Swain, and she's unwilling to cooperate and doesn't react well when Nick threatens to refuse to help with the prosecution. Later, Leanne is apologising to Amy at the florist when Swain turns up and tells her that she'll be getting formally charged next week and to look out for some confirmation in the post. Swain seems to take some pleasure from this. Leanne storms to the bistro to accuse Nick and Toyah of doing what they could to sink her and asks why she's the one who always loses her kids.
You sent your son away to live on a boat. I don't want to hear it, Leanne.
We always forget. We also always forget about Simon leaving last year.
I never forget.
We forget about that. That was one of those just not getting a new contract and just letting the character leave thing.
Right, yeah.
That seems to be the start of more examples of that kind of coming forward.
Right, yeah.
A little bit of a warning there, I think.
Whereas, I don't know, maybe we should keep the younger guys around and let the older ones retire.
Oh, you think?
Coronation Street is just like the United States Congress.
But better storylines, though. Yeah, Simon's one that they maybe should have kept.
Yeah, because they don't have enough boys on the show of that age.
Of that age? No, they don't.
They have Addie.
Yeah, who's shaved, thank goodness.
And I guess Max is sort of close to that same age.
Ish.
But that's it.
On Hogmanay, it's Nick's birthday and Leanne bumps into him, Sam and Toyah, but no one really wants to chat to Leanne too much, so they leave her to it.
Wait. David was born on Christmas Day and Nick was born on New Year's Day?
No, Nick was born on Hogmanay.
Isn't that New Year's Day? No, that's New Year's Eve.
Oh.
Sorry.
So close.
Still,
so close.
Still, how did Gail manage that? To have them obviously different years,
Well, obviously.
but like a week apart.
The number of people who are born or die at the festive sort of period is, I would say, above national averages.
When was Sarah born? St. Valentine's Day.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, God, I'm going to go
Easter.
back to fucking Corripedia again. Sarah Platt was born 12 days before Valentine's Day.
Well,
Give me another one.
Gail was really, really horny 9 months before winter.
Leanne's drinking alone in the pub later, and Nick and Toyah give her a wide berth, and that's as far as we get with all of that this week.
Yes.
A little bit of a shame for Leanne, don't you think? She has made her bed, though.
Right, yeah. And Toyah is bending over backwards to forgive her and try to keep her out of jail, and she's still a bitch to Toyah. How dare she say to Toyah, why am I the only one who ever loses their children? How dare she say that to Toyah? One baby is buried under a rose bush in a
not
park.
anymore. Not anymore. They moved it.
Yeah, I know. And then has had 2 other adoptable children taken away from her. And then there was the whole fake baby thing and everything. How dare Leanne say that to Toyah?
Especially when Toyah had absolutely no say in what was entirely Sam's decision.
Yeah, absolutely.
When everyone agreed that Sam was the only adult in the room at that point.
Yeah, which is maybe not something that you should admit out loud. That a 14-year-old kid is more of an adult than you are.
Yep.
He is 14, right?
Back to fucking Corripedia. Just as well they don't charge per hit here. Sam Blakeman he's 13 at the moment. He'll be 14 in a couple of months.
All right, so I wasn't too far off. Still, that's even worse.
I'm going to move on to Vallies of the Ken doll. On Monday, Steve announces it's time that he found a place of his own to live. He heads off to work in the head of the ballet. An upset Cassie tells Ken that she's spent too much on the credit cards this Christmas and doesn't know how she's going to pay it all back. So, obviously, Ken says that he'll pay for it and he'll deduct it from her wages. He's a sly old fox, is Ken, because he gives her this, but it's not for nothing. I'll give you this money, but I'll get it back with interest.
Yeah.
They get tarted up and head off to the ballet, agreeing that if the age difference was, just 30 years closer on both sides, they'd probably be quite enjoying getting their hole off of each other.
Or Ken would be too young for...
Later in the pub, after the ballet, Cassie and Steve flirt a little bit as they try to name 2 ballets. Steve says Swan Lake and then dries up. Cassie names the Nutcracker because she has culture falling out of her arse. Meanwhile, back at home, Ken tells Amy about helping out Cassie financially, but warns her not to tell Tracy. On New Year's Eve, Ken has been abandoned by his family and they spend New Year's Eve with the woman who is actively drugging him. They have a
Yay!
They have a snifter of sherry ahead of the bells, and although Cassie looks troubled by drugging Ken's drink, she still drugs it.
Right, yes. So she's moved on from just drugging something benign like tea to now drugging alcohol, which is already probably not great for someone his age to be drinking.
Yeah. And watching this is making Fiona's dog salivate. This knocks Ken out for a good hour or so, and he wakes up complaining about being permanently tired, but then tells Cassie how much he appreciates her, and this makes her clutch her collar a wee bit. On New Year's Day, Tracy and Steve are chatting about New Year when Cassie comes in wearing Steve's dressing gown, and she lets them all think that she fucked Ken last night and winds him up for a bit before admitting that she just stayed over to keep him company. On the street later, Tracy calls Cassie Anna Nicole Skaghead and warns her to stay away from Ken. But Cassie, poor Anna Nicole,
That woman is dead. Leave her alone.
She's been dead for about 20 years.
Leave that poor dead woman alone, Tracy. The kids don't even know what you're talking about.
No idea who she is. Cassie continues to wind Tracy up about Ken's sexual peccadillos until Tracy scalps Cassie across the jaw. And of course, Ken, who we haven't seen outdoors in months, is there to see this. Back home, as Cassie holds peace to her jaw, she admits to winding Tracy up, but when Tracy refuses to apologise, Ken kicks her arse out.
So I know we will get letters. So it's only been 13 years. She died in 2007.
That's not like you to be pedantic, Helen. You all right?
Well, we had to look up Corriepedia birthdays, so I might as well look up Anna Nicole Smith's death.
Later, in a reflective mood, Cassie wonders if a man like Ken would ever go for a woman like her. And for a moment, I'm like, where on earth are we going with this? Back all the way away from this, please.
Please.
I saw some speculation online about a possible marriage ahead for the two of them. And I'm like, that might just be the thing that pushes me over the edge as far as Coronation Street's concerned.
Remember when there was this hint of this lovely romance that Ken was going to have with that woman who he met at the rape hotel when he went to that thing with Steve, that dating thing with Steve, and nothing ever happened with it?
I think something was meant to happen with that,
right,
wasn't
something
it?
was meant to happen with that, and then nothing happened. And she was age appropriate, at least. What is going on? Yeah, because there were articles about this relationship that Ken was going to.
Ken was getting a love story.
Inundated with emails about this. Every Google alert I had was about this relationship, and then it never happened.
In the pub later, Tracy warns Steve that Cassie is manoeuvring them both out of the picture to get her claws into Ken, and Steve now remembers that it was Cassie's idea for him to move out, not the fact that he's in his 50s living with his ex-father-in-law. On Friday, at number 1, Tracy's looking for a place to hide a camera to catch Cassie in the act.
The act of what? That's what I would like to know.
Well, she doesn't know what's going on, but she knows that something's going on. She's convinced that she's trying to part Ken from his money. Amy tells him about Ken helping Cassie out with her credit card, so Tracy storms to Nina's Rolls to shout at Cassie for a bit about the loan, saying that Cassie will be waiting for Ken to die so she doesn't have to pay him back. But Ken surprises everyone by telling Tracy that Cassie's already paid him back. This is an obvious lie.
Yes.
But Ken wanted to see the look on Tracy's face, which I've kind of got to appreciate.
Yes.
He trusts Cassie entirely. In the pub later,
Cool.
Tracy is obsessed with getting revenge, but then fucks off for a massage at the rape hotel. That's how obsessed she is.
Yes.
She tells Steve to look after Ken privately. Amy tells Steve that Cassie's great with Ken and reckons that this is all just jealousy. And that's as far as we get with that.
Well, somebody's pulled the wool over your eyes, Amy. If anything, Amy should be the one the most upset that Ken is giving Cassie money
And refused.
and has refused to pay her back the money, her Granny Deidre money that Ken gave to the Institute. After, not willing to give Simon his Deidre money to start a business or any of the other things that these kids have been begging him for this money for.
Simon's business idea was pretty poor.
Yeah, but still.
He's going to deliver takeaways on his bike or something, isn't
The
he?
Institute is a pretty poor idea as well. Let's not forget.
Yeah. I think we just misunderstood. I think that, what was it called?
The Institute.
No, the practice that they had.
Downloading or uploading?
Reality something, wasn't it?
Reality coding.
Reality coding. I think there's a lot in reality coding. Now, if only somebody would give me, I don't know, $21,000, I could maybe do some research on the matter. Yeah, I don't want Ken to be anywhere near this storyline.
No.
I'm not exactly Ken's biggest fan.
No.
But every angle on this is just murkier than the last. And
why is Ken the only one of the old dears that we get storylines for anymore? When was the last time Rita or Audrey had a storyline?
God, we haven't had a Mary storyline in the longest time.
No, we haven't.
We see Brian and Mary very occasionally.
Yeah,
We saw Brian and Yasmin, was it last week or was it this week?
this week.
And they went to the pub together.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they were starting a little bit of a relationship.
I don't think so.
But
Because then Brian was talking about how he and Mary were playing parlor games, which must be code for something. Oh, that reminds me. Do you
hide
know
the sausage?
Did you know reality coding is a real thing?
I did not.
It's like the term used for augmenting reality into artificial intelligence.
Do you know what any of that meant?
Kinda.
Would you like me to stop questioning you about it?
Yes.
Can do.
Still, it has nothing to do with humanity.
Right.
It has to do with computers.
Well, the whole thing had a theme of computers.
Yeah, it did.
The whole thing with computers. Like my mum thought that I worked with computers. Oh, he works with computers in that
Yeah.
United States.
Yes. We all work with computers in that United States.
I am currently working with a computer.
Yes.
There's nothing about this that makes me happy. It's all too dark, too going in a really horrid direction. And the fact that Cassie keeps on looking like she knows she shouldn't be doing what she's doing, but just doing it anyway, I don't know if that makes it worse. It seems to. Oh well. Move on to our next storyline. Frankie goes to the hospital again.
Yay.
Even though
He's never left the hospital,
I think he gets out.
Did he?
On Monday, Max and Didi meet in Nina's roles. Didi explains to Max again that the prosecution barrister is going to rip racist Kelly to pieces. Max hasn't told racist Kelly this, but on Didi's advice, he promises to do so when he speaks to her later. But
Right.
when he speaks to her later, he doesn't tell her, and instead says that Didi is fairly positive about their chances. But then Didi meets racist Kelly at the prison after that and tells her about the prosecution barrister being a feral, rabid dog, and is surprised to learn that Max has said nothing. So they role play for a bit, racist Kelly giving evidence, and Didi very easily makes her look like a lying harpy, and then warns that this prosecution barrister, who is 9 feet tall and 800 pounds, will be even worse. This would have been good information to know before she pleaded not guilty. And that's all that happens in that storyline.
Yeah. Yeah. The look on Dee Dee's face when she realizes that Max did not tell her.
No.
After Max jumps in and says, "Oh, don't worry, I'll tell her."
It'll be better coming from me.
Yeah. And then just doesn't tell her. And it doesn't look like he even wants to tell her. You know, there's no part where he's like, "Oh, I have something to tell you," and then just doesn't tell her. He just doesn't tell her. There's no point in that conversation where it seems like he's leading up to it.
So this is a theme where Max doesn't want to tell racist Kelly any uncomfortable truths.
Right. Even though she needs some uncomfortable truth if she's going to get out of there.
He's constantly telling her how good a mother she is. Even though most of the time Frankie was in the hospital and she couldn't even touch or hold the baby. And now they're in jail.
Yeah.
So none of this is a prime environment that this relationship has been allowed to blossom in. So to keep on saying how good a mother racist Kelly is was getting on racist Kelly's nerves a little bit, and tell her, just stop telling me
Max.
what you think you want me to.
You think I want to hear. Yeah.
And this is just another example of that.
Absolutely.
I did, however, watch back the episode where Joel is bricked to death, and she does hit him twice. So she hits him twice, and in the meeting that she had with her lawyer said, "So this self-defense plea that you're going for, you say that you just hit him once, is that right?" And racist Kelly says, yes. And the barrister or the lawyer says, "Well, good, that'll be our angle."
Right.
That you only hit him once and it was just in self-defense. But she definitely hit him twice.
Yeah.
And if you hit him twice, he's going to have 2 wounds.
Right.
which you think would be
Well-
common knowledge, but
It would be hard to say because let's not forget that river was pretty shallow that they threw him off the bridge from a high height into. So it's very possible that that body would have a number of gashes in the back of the head from landing on the rocks in the river.
I think they'd be able to tell the difference between what was from a fall and what was blunt trauma.
I don't know. These cops in this show aren't always great at forensics.
In terms of the storyline construction, though, they're making a point of this one blow thing. And when it isn't one blow, I've got a feeling this is going to become important.
Yeah.
We'll move on. Our next storyline is Legally Elderly. On Hogmanay, it's New Year's Eve and Evelyn is at a low ebb with a lack of purpose. Roy tells her to sign up for further education and promotes the benefits of lifelong learning. Evelyn thinks it's too late. Later, she's watching TV on her own when Cassie comes in ahead of spending the night in number 1 to keep Ken company and drugged in another storyline. The two of them share some barbs about their work, with Evelyn thinking Cassie's scamming Ken, and Cassie thinks Evelyn has done nothing with her life either and leaves her to it. So Evelyn goes to the pub, and among her pals, she announces that 2025 will be Evelyn's year. Fuck y'all. And she necks a bottle of sherry. On New Year's Day, she's arguing with her laptop as she tries to complete a university application, distracted when Hope pranks her into drinking gravy instead of coffee. It's an hilarious prank.
According to Hope.
She goes to Nina's Rolls to finish her application and awkwardly asks Roy for a reference, but he's already written one, and it's a glowing one at that, calling her extraordinary. Back home, she's a bit sheepish when she tells Tyrone that she's going to university to take a law degree. Tyrone wants to know the punchline and then just fucks off to Devs for new gravy granules. I thought that was funny. Have you seen the gravy granules?
How many gravy granules did she put in there?
Well, here was the thing. It was a tea bag.
Yeah.
So she put the gravy granules into a tea bag. How did that work?
Well, you can buy the empty tea bags that you fill with like loose leaf tea.
Do you think Hope did that?
I don't believe Hope does half the things that they say that she does on this show.
That's true. Evelyn gets a similar reaction from Cassie later, and when Tyrone comes back armed with buckets of gravy granules, realises that she wasn't joking. Tyrone thinks it's amazing and tells his gran how proud he is of her.
And that she's the smartest person he knows.
And he knows Roy.
Which is lovely. It's lovely that Tyrone at least isn't a cow to her. Unlike her own daughter, who, once again, is not my favorite person on the show anymore.
Just horrible.
She was okay for a while, and now she's horrible again.
She's been fine so many times for just sitting in the cafe having a cup of tea and just laughing with her mum and with Tyrone, and those scenes with her and a few of her mates,
right,
are just nice.
Yeah.
And then
they make her horrid again.
I know.
Well, it's just like Hope. It's just like Hope. Remember? They were like, oh, she's going to be a good kid now and just have normal kid problems. And then she's like stealing vapes from Addie and going on the run and stuff.
Yeah.
And now making prank videos to put on the TikTok.
Talking of which, on Friday, prankster Hope is filming Tyrone and Evelyn eating breakfast, but Hope has put rat shit in their cereal. And is sure that this clip's going to go viral to all her followers.
She put salt in the sugar bowl.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Not rat shit?
Not rat shit, no.
Meanwhile,
where would she get the rat shit?
Presumably from a rat.
Where would she get enough rat shit to fill a sugar bowl and then bleach it so it looks like sugar?
Do you think Hope would do that?
No.
Meanwhile, Evelyn has an interview at the uni today on the 3rd of January. After applying on New Year's Day, Evelyn has an interview.
Yeah, and she's freaked out. She's like, this is far too soon. Why is it so early?
You think? Tyrone offers to give her a lift and she pretends that she doesn't want to, but then rushes him out the door mid-butty.
Yes.
But when she gets to the interview, wouldn't you Adam and fucking Eve it? The interviewer is none other than Marjorie Tavistock.
Dum dum dum.
John Doe has the upper hand. Evil dies tonight!
And we all remember Marjorie Tavistock
Don't we?
as being the woman that Evelyn stood in for at that conference the other week.
Right, who falsely claimed that Evelyn had stolen her identity when all she did was steal a name tag.
And she's at it again with that. The interview is a bit more tempestuous than you'd ideally like, and on her way out, Evelyn points out how she spent her life fighting, and for once she thought she might achieve something. When she gets home, she gives Tyrone a different story about how things went, and then gets stuck into Hope and Joseph about the legalities of filming pranks. Hope, though, wants to go bigger with a proper prank.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Uh-oh. Oh, indeed, Helen.
Uh-oh.
Later, though, she gets a call from the university people, and somehow, some way, her application has been successful.
Weird.
She celebrates with Roy, eager to get started on this lifelong dream she's had for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And that's as far as we get with that.
I like this. I like this. I like...
It's horribly rushed, don't you think, though?
Well, yeah. But I
Because
like
they're going to have us believe that term starts in January.
Maybe the end of January. I don't know. February. No, it's like end of January.
When does term normally start?
End of January.
The second term of the year.
Yeah. But you can start second term. College, you can start whenever you, at the beginning of either term. It's not like it's the same classes, because it's not. You've already had your finals.
Except she hasn't.
No, because she's just starting now.
I don't know. It feels all very unlikely.
It's a nice story. I like it.
And
I'm all
it is
for it.
manoeuvring Evelyn out of the show for a while.
I prefer this to some of the other cockamamie ways that they do it.
Isn't this entirely cockamamie?
No, I like it.
Well, I know you like it, but it was hatched
I like this idea that Evelyn is going to go to college and study law. I think it's inspirational and aspirational. We should all aspire to better ourselves in such a way. I'm surprised that she can study law without... Well, it must be like pre-law, right?
I wouldn't know.
Because I'm assuming in the UK, just like here, it's an advanced degree to get on the board.
Well, let's think about what
And you
Elle
have to
Woods had
take-
to go through to
and-
get onto the Harvard law.
Right,
She
you have
had
to take the
pass the
LSAT.
LSATs,
LSAT.
and then she had to do an entrance video.
Uh-huh. But she had already gotten her bachelor's degree at that point, because this was an advanced degree. You take the LSATs and you apply to law school and you do a video.
I'm just thinking
Or
of...
wait a second, did she have to do a video? Because she did a video to be different and special and not write an essay. I think maybe we have to watch Legally Blonde again.
We need to see Dame Maureen Lipman on a Lilo. That's what we need.
And we need to see her and Jennifer Coolidge do the back and snap.
Bend and snap.
Bend and snap, yes. I would like to see Dame Maureen Lipman and Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh my gosh.
No.
What on earth do you think Hope's up to?
She's going to burn David's house down.
Something awful is going to happen, and it's all going to be Hope's fault.
Correct, because they lied when they said they were going to make her a normal little girl now.
God damn you, Coronation Street.
God damn you indeed.
Moving on, our next storyline, Detective Mason. On New Year's Day, in Nina's Rolls with Tim, Mason wishes Happy New Year to Dylan, and he hopes that they can put their past behind them. Then Betsy insists that Mason takes her out on a date on New Year's Day, and Mason seems oddly useless in this regard, and has to be kind of forced into doing it by Sally, who gets him to agree and then gives him some ideas for what to do. Sally thinks the movies is a terrible idea, because all you do is sit in a dark room together. Aye. And after some interrogation, she suggests that Mason uses his culinary skills to make Betsy a meal.
And Mason says, it's not the 1990s anymore. This is not a romantic comedy.
Tim thinks the 1990s was 5 years ago.
So do I.
So Mason is cooking dinner when Dylan shows up. he's spoken to Tim, who told him about all the bother that he's had with his brothers. And in that light, Dylan can understand why Mason took it out on him and Liam. But Mason, God damn it, Mason, so redeemed. He takes responsibility for his own actions and says it's all on him. Either way, Dylan might not want to suck his cock or anything, but agrees to let their history go, and they shake on it.
Yes.
Redemption complete.
Nice.
Then later, Betsy shows up, and she isn't really into dinner, thinking it's a bit 1990s, so she drags him up the stairs for her hole instead. Mason made minestrone soup.
Yes. And
I saw
it
a
was
question asked on social media, do teenagers eat minestrone soup these days? When was the last time you had minestrone soup? Was it that time I made it?
I think I've had canned minestrone since then.
I've had minestrone cup of soup since then. I love a minestrone cup of soup.
I'm not really a fan of minestrone. It's not like my favorite soup. If there are other soups in the cupboard, I will go for those before I go for minestrone.
Sure, I do like a minestrone cup of soup though. It's different when it's cup of soup. It just is.
The kids like soup, don't they?
Minestrone soup? He made minestrone soup. He made spaghetti carbonara.
Right, which makes sense.
Culinary genius. And also
Brownies with
chocolate
ice cream.
brownies with ice cream.
Yes,
and that was
which
the only
is
thing that she was interested in.
Betsy's favorite. Yeah, she's kind of a cow to him, isn't she?
Is he remotely interested in this? He seems so disinterested all the way through.
In dating her?
Or just her in general.
Yeah, until...
Yeah.
But he does like to cook, which is nice. And I don't know, maybe Sally suggested the minestrone soup.
Oh,
It feels like something Sally would suggest.
Sally's got minestrone written all over her.
Yes, she does.
On Friday, Mason and Tim are doing shopping in Devs when Mason announces that Stu has been in touch. Remember Stu?
Remember
And Tim's
Stu?
Like, oh, Beardy Stu?
Beardy Stew, yes. That's the thing we all remember about him. He had a beard.
And, oh my God,
It was gorgeous.
that wavy hair and those baby blues.
Yeah.
He's been on the phone, he's looking for a trainee chef. But Mason's enjoying life on the cobbles a bit too much. And as if by magic, he gets a booty call from Betsy. So after getting her hole at Carla's, Betsy is reading Mason's texts and is angry to read that Stu wants him in Germany. Well, see, if you don't want to get angry at somebody's texts,
Don't read somebody's
maybe
text.
don't read them. Mason points out that they're not married. And Betsy's about to throw him out when Swain comes in. Mason leaves, but Swain chases after him and reads him the riot act.
She comes in right as he's zipping up his pants.
Yep. I was like, oh, I've not got time for this.
Yeah.
He's not into getting treated like this by her and wants to know why she hates him so much. Swain says, oh, damn it.
It's Swain.
A retrospective Swain.
Yes.
Swain says that she'll do better than that, and she offers to show him why. And she shows him the crime scene photos from Becky's murder.
Why does she have those on her phone?
Mason doesn't
Why
know.
do you have the blood stains of your wife on the street on your phone?
She was flipping through them
What is wrong with you?
without even looking at the phone. She knew the order.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Hopefully she didn't go one or two too far.
It's like if I had pictures. It's like Stelly.
Where are you going with this? Think about what you're about to say.
Yes, and I stopped because
The internet is forever.
I think we have enough of my medical history out there at the moment. It's like the fact that Stelly has pictures of her friend's brain from his brain surgery on her phone.
She does?
Yeah. He said, do you want to see pictures of my brain? And she said, sure. And so he sent them to her.
What the fuck is wrong with the kids?
She showed them to me. They're kind of cool. It's like, oh, look, there's his brain.
Anyway,
Mason
doesn't know why she's doing this. So she tells him that it was his brothers, Ant and Dec, who done it. Becky died so they could steal £500 in cash, an air fryer, a flat screen TV, a cuddly toy, and a World War II helmet. He says he knew nothing about any of this, and she accuses him of sticking with his brothers. She yells at him for a bit until Tim comes along to usher Mason away.
Yeah.
But Mason looks in shock by the whole thing.
Yes.
Later, Swain sits and watches and Nina's rolls as Ant and Dec come in and start bullying David for tea and crumpets. Back home, Tim tells Sally about Mason's run-in with the law, and Sally says that Swain has got a face like an angel and a mouth like a sewer. Oh, Sally.
Oh, Sally. Is this when they come in to talk to her and she's asking about where something is, and
Yes.
and Tim thinks that she's talking about something else, something that would be in her bedside drawer, and she doesn't think about what she's saying until she turns around and sees that Mason is there too, and then all of a sudden she clams up about her bedside drawer.
Well, she's searching in the cupboard under the sink or whatever, and then she just pops up and she says something about her vacuum cleaner accessories,
Right.
and then just shuts up.
Yes.
So, anyway, Mason texts Dylan and gets him to keep lookout while he breaks into Ant and Dec's flat. And whatever he finds, he black bags and takes to the cop shop. The plan is to hand this in and then disappear to Germany, he tells Dylan. He shows the contents of the bag to Swain. It's a World War II helmet, and this proves that Ant and Dec killed Becky. For some reason, Swain takes it to Kit. It's a proper breakthrough, she says, and Kit goes off to pull them in, which he does as they're sitting in a car, about
Staring
to pull
at David in the middle of the day.
about to pull balaclavas on
In the middle of the day.
before kicking fuck out of David.
In the middle of the day.
It's so funny. They pull the balaclavas down and he's on the
And then
on
they
window
pull
of
the
car.
balaclavas up. Do they know how stupid this looks? Do you think this is intentional? That these guys that are supposed to be these murderous villains are so goofy?
Yeah,
They've got to know, right? They've got to know that this is so goofy.
one would hope.
And yet, they're these mean, nasty, threatening, murderous kids. What is going on here?
And Kit's like, you guys have got to be smarter than this. You're sitting here obviously staring at David.
Wearing balaclavas.
Out the car, Buckles, and he and some elderly reinforcements arrest Ant and Dec. Meanwhile, Mason tells Betsy all that's happened today, saying that it was his brothers who killed her mum. She accuses him of knowing all along and tells him that they're done, calling him bad blood, the same as Ant and Dec. And her reaction
Mason.
to this is
Terrible.
absolutely ridiculous. Because
So bad.
Mason's explained it as clearly as he possibly can.
Right, yeah.
That he's the one who has got this evidence,
To
taken
turn
it
them
to
in,
the police.
even though it may mean him getting murdered by his own brothers. And this is her reaction.
And all through this, I was thinking, I just really don't want to see these two people arguing and falling out
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
I could give zero fucks
It's
for this.
bad. It's bad enough having to go through Swain and Carla falling out all the time.
Exactly. We don't have to do this with teenagers.
Every day.
She says that she doesn't want to see him again. So Mason decides to take Stu up on his offer and will be heading to Germany. Soon, Sally thinks this might be for the best. And Mason gets a bit emotional, bless him, over how kind Tim and Sally have been to him.
Right. He's never lived in a house
With a fridge before.
with a
Well,
with
you should check out Chesney's then.
with a full fridge and clean and with nice people.
And toilet paper. She tells him to grab this fresh start and he can be whoever he wants to be in Germany.
In the army.
And that's as far as we get with that.
Whew.
Yeah, the complete redemption arc for
Of
Mason has
Mason.
been so effortlessly done.
Right, which makes me fear for his safety.
100%.
Yeah.
Now that redemption has been complete,
Yeah.
all bets are off.
Now that Dylan's helping him
Yeah.
pull heists.
Stealing from his brothers.
Yeah. You just need Liam in the bunch.
Yeah. Yeah, I do worry for him. Especially when he's got this offer to go away.
Right, yeah.
He's so close to
He's so
freedom.
close to getting out. Mm-hmm. Do you think the kid has a passport?
Not a chance. Not a chance. And I think
They're not members of the EU anymore.
I think we're forgetting how difficult it is to emigrate anywhere.
Anymore.
Can you just go and work in Europe now without a visa? I think surely you need a visa of some nature.
Oh, maybe.
You need some residency has to be.
Yeah. How
did Stu get that sorted out?
How is Stu owning a business now? How did that happen?
Well, he's loaded,
That's true.
and that buys you a lot of permits.
Maybe that will help him get Mason a visa once he gets there. I'm just like, the kid needs a passport to get to Germany now.
Although I am kind of nostalgic for the episode where Abby got a Costa Rican.
Oh, right, yes. Abby's Costa Rican adventure that never was.
She got documents to allow her to move to Costa Rica. And I thought, is that the most random?
Baby.
Is that the most random move that's ever been proposed? Where did that be? Because she went to Costa Rica.
Oh, it's like
What, Costa Coffee? No, Costa Rica, the
It's-
country.
yeah, it's like Gail just toting off to Thailand every once in a while. A pensioner's dime.
You can probably do that in Thailand, I would have thought. Fairly cheap.
Would it be cheap to fly there?
Yeah. I would say that's probably the lion's share of your costs. I don't know.
No.
Well, find out what Corripedia have to say no matter.
No.
Okay. No, this was nice for the most part. I'm really confused about the dynamic between Mason and Betsy. And if I didn't know any better, I would suggest there's a chance that maybe Mason was more into boys than girls. From his reaction.
Well, it appears he's able to get it up for Betsy, so...
But didn't he?
I think he's just awkward and shyer than he should be.
Maybe that's what it is.
I think he's just...
That's when he was a boisterous bully.
Right.
And they broke into the Rovers. There was a girl there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
But he wasn't into her either, and he was trying to get...
he was using...
trying to get Dylan to...
Yeah, she was into Dylan.
I did think it was funny that the items that were stolen a number of years ago
Include an air fryer?
included an air fryer, and were to believe that they kept the World War II helmet just kicking about the flat.
Right, yeah. The one thing that would actually be worth money.
But also the one thing that Mason probably remembered seeing.
Right.
So it sort of
Yeah,
makes
because
sense.
you see one air fryer, you've seen them all. It's
Air
not like
fryer.
it's a specific air fryer.
All right, our final storyline tonight is It's a Swarla New Year. On Monday, Carla's in Nina's Rolls with Maria chatting about Christmas when Swain and Betsy come in to announce that the frozen pipe fairy has visited them over the night and their place is flooded.
What? No, not another frozen pipe storyline.
Usually it's the school. So Carla tells them to move into her place while theirs is drying out. With Ryan and Bobby conveniently out of the way, it's a deal. So as they move stuff in, Carla tries to help with a box of files that falls on the floor, and Swain is quick to usher her away from these important documents. Carla hands over one file that she missed, realising that it's Becky's case file. On Hogmanay, Carla complains to Swain about her having to work New Year's Eve. Swain says that she'll see what she can do, and they arrange to meet in Nina's Rolls later. But it becomes clear that Swain and Betsy have a surprise in store. And that was kind of cute between the two of them.
Yes, it was
Betsy's
cute.
like, I don't know how you managed to keep a straight face. And
yeah.
that was nice.
That was cute.
The surprise is a table with candles, and Roy has made salmon en cru. So they have a lovely romantic lunch in a dingy wee cafe until Swain gets a call from a woman whose violent ex has been released from prison early. Carla gives Swain the green light to go and check on her. Later, Carla sees Kit and asks after Swain explaining about the domestic abuse victim. Kit thinks that they're coppers, not social workers, and apparently Swain was warned about getting too close to this person before. And just then, Kit gets a call about an officer requiring assistance, and he zooms off to get involved in yet another storyline.
Yes.
When Swain gets home, she's had a bit of jam on her lip, courtesy of the violent ex. She insists that she's okay and goes to clean herself up for the pub. And they celebrate New Year in the Rovers with Carla saying that she never thought she'd be ending 2024 falling in love with a lady copper. And this freaks Swain the fuck out. And when she doesn't say anything in return, Carla slinks off home, which doesn't feel like a very Carla thing to do, but anyway. Back home, Swain apologises, but says that she's just a bit further behind, what with Becky and her inability to let her guard down and stuff.
And the dead wife thing.
Yeah.
Let's not forget she has a dead wife.
They smooch, and then Carla takes a worrying dizzy turn. On New Year's Day, in Nina's roles, Swain is trying to arrange a secret party for Carla, who is not looking well and does not appreciate it when she has to run off to work and leave her.
Yeah, because it's Carla's birthday now.
Yeah. Carla's... Wouldn't you believe it?
The day after Nick's birthday.
On New Year's Day.
Yes.
But her birthday's the 3rd, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but still.
Carla starts imagining Freddy the dog barking, and then we get some special effects that she hears Roy giving her a hard time about the boxes at the factory. None of this is actually happening.
No.
And she barges by Tyrone on her way home, making him think that she's pissed out of her tits. She makes it home, then imagines the door knocking, and eventually she collapses. Meanwhile, Tyrone meets Evelyn in Nina's roles and tells Roy about seeing Carla looking 7 sheets to the wind. So concerned, he goes round to the flat and finds Carla sparked out and calls her an ambulance.
Carla, you're an ambulance.
Meanwhile, Swain is looking for Dick, who apparently was brought in for being drunk and disorderly, but Kit has already let him go. So she follows him to the precinct, where she attempts to rough him up about Becky's murder.
Right, and says really stupid things to the kid. Like, basically, just point blank says, I'll do whatever I have to get you to talk. Mm-hmm. Which is not something you say to a person that you're interrogating.
Not usually.
No, because that's illegal.
Dick says Becky would be so disappointed in her, and she goes for him until Kit appears from nowhere to break it all up. At the hospital, given the symptoms, the doctors think that Carla has sepsis and seem very concerned
What?
to learn that Carla is missing a kidney.
What? Sepsis? Sepsis, you say? Wow, we haven't had a sepsis storyline in what? 3 weeks? Everybody keeps getting sepsis. Why does everybody keep getting sepsis? She better be careful because the last person who got sepsis got a stoma.
And the one before that lost a leg. This one is missing a kidney.
Right, yes. I'm just relieved that it's not...
It's sepsis bingo on Coronation Street.
I'm just relieved that it's not, her delirium coming back.
Oh, thank God.
Because I was like, this doesn't make any sense. She's not stressed. She's not being drugged. There's no reason for her to be acting like this. Apparently it's from her head wound. You'd think that would have closed up by now.
Well, it happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
A month ago.
She was knocked out.
Right. And then she got back up again. And then she got knocked down.
I know what you're doing.
And she's not
and
getting
I'm,
back
and
up
I'm
again.
refusing to
yet.
play along. Roy tells the doctors that Carla's missing a kidney. And Roy tries to get hold of Swain, but she's busy fucking around with Deck at this point and is unreachable. Eventually, Roy is allowed to see Carla, who's on the mend, but she's oddly now feeling uncommitted about her relationship with Swain, thinking that she's had enough to deal with Becky, and she thinks Swain will bail on her when she finds out about her kidney stuff. So when Swain calls her later from the flat wondering where she is, and armed with flowers and wine, Carla tells her that she's at the airport heading to Ireland to see Michelle and Ryan. She insists that this has nothing to do with the I love you thing from the previous day. Smell you later, she says, and that's that. And Swain, like Rana, is crushed.
Yes.
So on Friday, at the hospital, Roy's with Carla, and she asks him to pick up some bits and bobs from the flat and to make sure that Swain isn't there. Roy isn't comfortable with this, but Carla says that she doesn't want anyone knowing her business.
Yes, especially since the last time he had to go to a friend's apartment to do a chore for them, he got arrested for murder.
But unbeknownst to anyone, Ryan's already back, and Swain is shocked to see him in Nina's roles, telling Sarah that he came back to give Carla a birthday surprise.
But not like that.
They both go back to the flat and catch Roy in the act.
But not like that.
working his way through Carla's clothes. Swain wants to know where Carla is. No comment, says Roy, which is funny. But he must eventually comment because next we see Carla's wearing a face mask that...
Yes.
Who gave her... Was it Roy that gave her the mask? I think it must have been.
I don't know.
And she takes it off.
And there's
And the three of them
people
looking down at her. Roy,
That was funny.
Ryan, and Swain.
That was funny. I liked that.
Funny. Carla says that she just didn't want to have a fuss made over her, but Swain hates being lied to and storms off in a huff. She says that she gets enough of this at work. But once again,
Huffy.
we're putting more barriers between them.
Huffy.
Later, Carla learns that her sepsis has done some proper damage to her kidney and she might need to get her third one. Worst case scenario, a wonky kidney and dialysis might give her another 10 years, and she's obviously worried about this. Ryan calls Swain, who comes back to talk about the case from another storyline, but then remembers where she is and asks Carla how she is. Carla explains and gives Swain an out, saying that she would understand, but Swain says it's too late because she loves Carla and is going to be with her every step of the way. And that's how we end this week's episodes.
They've been dating for like a month, and their dating has basically been sex and coffee at Nina's Rolls
And arguing.
and breaking up.
Well, not even broken up, but they've fallen out.
Right. Constantly falling out with one another.
And they're going to fall out again when Swain finds out that Carla's been covering for Betsy
Yeah.
about the factory robbery.
This is... I get it's a soap opera. I do. But Mason has the right idea.
What, going in Germany?
No, about how kind of, I guess, maybe dating for 2 weeks does not mean that you are beholden to the other person.
Yeah, they're
And-
not married.
And that you haven't fallen in love with them in like a month. This is not a Disney princess movie.
True. And I hate...
And it kind of cheapens the whole first I love you thing to make it happen so fast. And then to do the whole thing where one person says it and the other person doesn't. And so the first person gets upset. And then the other person says it later after like a tragedy happens or something.
Mm.
I mean, this is old hat now.
It does feel a little bit
This is
rushed.
a soap opera, not a romantic comedy.
But Swain annoyed me for the first time this week. And it was during those scenes with Deck
Yeah.
in the precinct.
She
And-
didn't act like Swain.
And she also kind of annoyed me in her scenes with Mason this week when she's getting laid into Mason.
Right. Yeah.
Because Mason's saying, well, why don't you talk to your daughter about this?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, you're an adult. And not only are you an adult, you're a police officer.
Yeah.
Why is your first instinct to come and shout at me? Go and speak to your
Right.
daughter. Well, my daughter's not going to talk to me. Well, that's not my fucking fault.
Right. Exactly. Well, then maybe therein lies your problem. Maybe this is part of the reason why your daughter won't talk to you. Because when she gets close to another person, you run after them and interrogate them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't like
this why I don't like the
feeling
side
this
of
way.
Swain.
I don't like feeling this way about Swain.
No.
But it's what we've worried about since they made her a
Regular character.
regular full-time
Yeah.
character is that they have to soapify it
Yeah.
and throw in these little personality traits. That autism thing, I think, is still on the table.
I still think it's bipolar disorder.
There's something up there.
Yeah. It'd be fun if they had it so that she and Kirk both find out about their mental illnesses together.
They could become buddies.
Yeah. They could go to group together.
I do think, though, that once again, in this relationship where they're in love, fair enough. It's like
Ugh.
people move at different speeds. But they're, again...
Not adults.
But again, they're putting these things in the way to make it so full of drama.
Yeah.
Because we've had the factory thing.
Right.
We've had the announcing the relationship thing. We've had the not announcing the relationship thing.
Right.
We've got the kidney thing.
Right.
And all of this is adding drama and tension to a relationship that is seemingly working so well that they've fallen in love so quickly, which, fair enough.
No, not fair enough.
No, it's
These
fair
are
enough.
adults.
No, it's fair. It is fair enough. But what's making it more difficult to swallow is all these obstacles that are getting thrown in the way. And there's also the bit about Swain's job and having to leave Carla
Right.
when she's not feeling very well. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm in a job where if I don't go to work, people can die.
Right.
So I'm going to go and do that.
It also left a very bad taste in my mouth when Swain says to Carla that she's the most important thing in her life. It's like, your daughter has been begging you to make her the most important thing in your life. And you keep saying that she's the most important thing in your life and then fucking off and not being a parent to this kid who desperately needs some parenting.
Well, here is Swain's issue.
Yeah.
She's saying that she loves all these people.
Right.
But then runs away from them
Yeah.
the first chance that she gets.
Correct.
And also, what happened to the cat? They've got a cat. Because remember, social media blew up. Swain's got a cat. Of course she's got a cat. Is the cat currently swimming for its life back in their flat? We've got a wee soggy moggy.
I think this is going to have to be added to Wendy's list. Swain's cat.
Swain's cat. I tell you what, I'm about to add item number 23 to Wendy's list of the things that the show's forgot.
Swain's cat.
Swain's got a cat. I want the show to make it the easiest thing in the world to get behind this. Because so many people have wanted it for so long and we're thrilled when it's delivered. And I think it's a reasonable request that the relationship is allowed a honeymoon period for, remember, is a difficult relationship for both of them because Swain still very much grieving her wife.
Her wife.
And Carla exploring new parts to her sexuality that she wasn't aware of.
Yeah, and still smarting a little bit from the whole Peter thing.
I was looking at the New Year's from years gone by.
Right, when they were in the billiards.
And that wasn't that long ago.
No, it really wasn't. And that was like a really beautiful, that's like one of my favorite New Year's corries is Carla and Peter in the billiard hall. It was a really beautiful kind of scene where it's just the two of them together.
And he only left a year ago.
Yeah.
Because it happened at New Year, because of course it did.
Right.
So this is a difficult enough situation for the pair of them.
Right.
I just think that being allowed to bask in something working well
Right.
and two characters that have chemistry, being allowed to enjoy that chemistry
Right.
for a couple of months before we start throwing all this shite at them, I just think it would make it it'd make it a better sell rather than all the stuff that's happened, all the stuff that's going to happen now, because God knows what's going to happen to Carla. I don't know. They're so desperate to get drama happening every single storyline
Correct.
that's on the show. This week we haven't mentioned it, but there's the hint of something that the show used to do all the time really well. That every week you'd have a really short length story that only would last either a couple of episodes or a couple of weeks, that was just there for daft laughs. And it would maybe be Steve and Tim doing something stupid that involved...
The Velociraptor tape.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we got the makings of that a little bit this week with the walking football and
Right.
the little table football thing that they were doing in the pub, which I remember playing, and it took me back to school thinking about making the little goals with your hands.
It's so funny
and
because...
firing the paper through, and
because-
firing the coin through.
Here, for table football, the goals go this way.
Right? Well, that's table rugby as far as I was concerned. So that's a great, cheap, easy way to break up drama.
Right.
And drama and drama and drama.
And
by having a little light-hearted throwaway
right.
little storyline that means nothing and can be completely forgotten, but it gives us something to laugh at.
Right.
But the show's desperate to just pack as much drama.
Pound, and it's and we got a little of the whole Sally and Tim are sex fiends bit. A hint of that again, and it's like, oh, finally! It's been so long since we've talked about Sally and Tim being sex fiends.
But I think there's a difference between throwing in cheeky little references like that and actually dedicating
time,
some scenes over a few episodes to a story that is just there to lighten the mood.
Right.
And if we're talking about things that are cheap to do, I think this is a great way of doing it.
Right.
And plus you can bring in characters that we don't see, that don't have a storyline, that can be part of that.
Yeah.
And
then cheeky extras in the back, just kind of smiling and watching.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Yeah. And that's the thing. They're like, oh, we have to do all of these things, all of these like special effects and these hard-hitting dramatic storylines that cost a lot of money. How are we going to do that? Well, let's start firing people and cutting corners. And it's like, no, just do like regular stories about regular people the way it was meant to be in the beginning.
There are too many characters on the show, though. There's like 90 characters.
Right.
That's
and
too
we
many.
never see half of them.
No, you forget that they're there.
And you're like, and then when you finally see them, you're like, oh, it's that person. Man, we've missed them. Where have they been all this time?
So when we saw Nina at New Year and she had novelty glasses on, for a second I didn't know who the fuck it was.
Yeah, and Dev is hugging someone at some point during that scene, and I still don't know who that was.
That's just an extra.
Was it just an extra? Mm-hmm. An extra got to be hugged by Dev?
There were a couple of extras in those scenes.
Who the hell is that person
that were
Dev
getting
is
a
hugging?
little bit more to do. Mm-hmm.
Why is Dev hugging this strange person? Yeah, but it's like Nina.
Dev's a hugger.
Nina, you know, we got to see her New Year's Eve. And then we got to see her last week. When did we get to see her last week? And I was like, oh my God, it's Nina. Nina's there. Oh, it's for the Gail's wedding. Because she was sitting next to Roy at Gail's wedding.
All right, yep.
And it's like, it's been so long since we've seen Nina. She should be in every scene in Nina's roles. Alex, we got to see Alex this week. That was nice for one scene. Because apparently everybody else fucked off on New Year's Day and left him to run the cast by himself. Which is ridiculous. Yeah, it's exhausting watching this show now. Exhausting. Give me more Steve and Tim wrapping themselves in packaging tape and pretending to be velociraptors. That's what made me fall in love with the show in the first place. It doesn't have to be hospital scenes and police station scenes and court scenes and floating guns.
This has been a decision that has been made to allow for more heavy-hitting storylines. There's people getting hospitalised all the time, so we need to have a hospital set.
Right.
There's people going to the police all the time, and we're having police storylines.
Right.
So we need a police
and
station
we've got
set.
3 main characters who work in that police station.
Yeah. I feel like we've drifted a little bit away from the final storyline there, but I'm glad we had a little chance to talk about
to vent
those items, because I really do think that the changes that need to be made to make Coronation Street what it was don't necessarily need to be all that dramatic, for want of a better word. It's like these are simple changes.
I am far more invested in Evelyn going to college to study law.
Yeah, we're not going to get to see that.
Than I am, and I kind of wish we would. That I am far more interested in that and her taking this leap to do something, and, you know, members of her family and friends being really supportive and others, you know, mocking her a little bit too much. Give me more of that. Give me more storylines of normal people living on the street, just trying to get by and doing interesting things that don't necessarily require them to get shot or stabbed or, their house lit on fire or a sinkhole or a floating gun.
You watch some storylines and the only thing that it really has gone for it or had gone for it was it's a community. So you have not 2 people in a storyline or 3 people in a storyline. You have like 6 people in a storyline because the community gets involved because there's a huge cast here. So why wouldn't you? Why would you limit a storyline to 3 or 4 characters when you've got 90 people to choose from? And the more that you bring in the community feel, the more it feels like
a community.
The Coronation Street that people claim to love.
Right.
And everybody looks at this with nostalgic glasses on, and I understand that, and I'm guilty of it myself.
Yes.
But we're looking to be entertained here, and a laugh goes a long way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Or, even the Daisy, who's the daddy storyline, that doesn't require an awful lot of money, and it's dramatic and it's soapy.
And it does involve a lot of people. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Being a quadrangle or whatever, but...
And it's a bit intriguing, the whole storyline.
And it's just an infidelity storyline at its heart.
Which is what soap operas are built upon.
Yeah.
Infidelity.
All right. Well, that was the week that was Coronation Street. Helen, tell me, what was your moment of the week?
I've already texted you my boring moment of the week.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Why did you text me?
Because while I was still watching upstairs hours ago. Evelyn getting into college and Tyrone telling him that she's proud of her.
He's proud of her.
Yeah.
Not Mason getting emotional as he thanks Tim and Sally.
That is a close second. But didn't we give Mason getting to spend Christmas with Tim and Sally moment of the week a couple weeks ago?
No, I can't remember.
It wasn't last week because obviously last week was the wedding, or was Gail watching the video after the wedding. Yeah, I think it's been too soon since we've given it to Mason.
I don't know that that's a rule.
Yeah, I know, but I also really liked Tyrone apologizing that he thought it was a joke and saying that he's really proud of his gran and that she's the smartest person he knows.
Okay, that is our
moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
Boring moment of the week.
Daniel's speech.
Daniel's speech was dreadful and boring. That's our
boring moment of the week.
Honorable mention, Sarah and Bethany talking about kitten heels.
I don't know what that is. All right. At this point in the podcast, we always like to have a little look to see what our Twitter followers have been saying about this week's episodes. I allow them to vote on a poll where they indicate that this week's episodes have either been yay, meh, or zzz, depending on what they think. And looking at the poll just now, zzz gets 15.4%, meh gets 22%, and yay is 62.6%.
Really?
A resounding vote of confidence in this week's storylines that contained some important things about Carla and Swain.
Right, yes. But also Ant and Dec putting on balaclavas in the middle of the street in the middle of the day.
I'm sure that's worth a couple of votes. Absolutely. Responding to that tweet, Laws says, I'm somewhere in between yay and meh. Dare I say, definite improvements lately, with bits that I've enjoyed. The David Steve chats, Mason's redemption, but just can't give it quite the full yay yet. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way, generally speaking, Laws. But of course, we don't let that influence our decision. Helen, what's your score out of 10 for this week?
5.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I'm giving it a 6, maybe even a 6.5. I think a 6.5.
It wasn't as good as last week.
There were bits that I enjoyed. I think the promise of table football and walking football does suggest that the powers that be do remember where their bread's buttered or something that makes sense. Who knows? All right then, let's wrap this one up This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast: Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, English Victoria, Aurora Yvonne, Heather Westerfield, Russell Whiting, Jackie B, Brittany Porter, Laurie Anna, Tina, Stephen, Laird, Tara J, and Fiona B.
Whew.
Thank you very much, folks. We very much appreciate it.
Muchas gracias.
If you've ever lost a vacuum cleaner accessory, write in to tell us about it. We're the talkofthestreet@gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. Or you can reach us the old-fashioned way, the Talk of the Street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan 48827. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street, or patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
Hot take! Vampires are boring and Crash is bad.
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Happy New Year, everybody.